Welcome back to the Mountain Morning Show. We are live in Park City and of course in a state that is constantly growing in every aspect of business, with young entrepreneurs bringing more and more seasonal and resort staff into town. And I am thrilled to be sitting down with Deb Gabor, leading brand strategist and CEO at Solmarketing. Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for being here. So I want to talk a little bit about branding as a whole, because that has been on the forefront of so many Parkites' minds, specifically with the big brand of Vail coming to town.
Absolutely.
And everyone always asks me, it's the first thing, how has it affected Park City? How has it affected Park City? And there's so many different brands at play. You've got the brand of Park City, then you've got the brand of Vail, then you have the brand of Deer Valley Resort and the already existing businesses that were here. As a leading brand strategist that takes a look at this from an outsider's perspective, what do you think the influence of Vail has been and how they've managed to dominate the market so well?
So one of the things that I see happening, and I've been watching this unfold over the last couple of years, is a kind of a consistency and a bigness and a credibility to the brand. There are some positive things about it, and I think that Vail has introduced a lot of technology. They've with the Epic Pass, they've really lowered the cost of season passes
and sort of consolidated so many experiences into one.
Yeah, exactly, and then brought a consistency to those experiences, whether you're having it here in Park City or you're having it someplace in Colorado, or now with the acquisition of Whistler, that's something that's going to be consistent, you know, across all of the places where Vail has resorts. And that's going to raise the level of the experience for everybody. It's going to deliver a solid experience to everybody all the way around. I think that what a lot of people are talking about is really how does this impact kind of the nostalgia and the legacy of the existing brands. So integrating those brands together, like integrating the Park City brand and integrating, you know, the brand of the people who love Park City into the Vail Resorts brand. And
because realistically, we all have to work together. They're
absolutely
here. You know, it's all going to become one eventually. So how do we sort of complement each other rather than try and sort of take away from each other's success? I think is a challenge.
Right. And so one of the things that I look at from a branding perspective is the idea that the brand is not owned exclusively by the brander. I always say brand or be branded. Your brand exists in the mind of your customers, right? And so one of the things that Vail is going to need to do is really understand, you know, who are our customers, who's the core audience for this, what's important to them, most importantly, what does it say about them that they choose a Vail Resort, and how does that Vail Resort brand, you know, really sort of bring out the best in the people who want to have those ski and snowboarding experiences. Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about branding, because you just said the brand is really not owned by the company. It's not owned by the CEO. It's owned by the consumer. I think a lot of people think of branding as an afterthought. I have my product or I have my experience, then I'm going to think about how to brand it. And they think of, you know, what's my website going to look like, or what's my logo going to be, and that's all that it is. But branding's much more than the tangible.
Absolutely. So branding is not just a logo, it's not a color scheme, it's not a website, it's not a marketing campaign. Branding actually is the core DNA of the organization. And so when I go in and I work with organizations, usually the first thing is, what color are we going to be? How are we going to show up? And that's just the articulation of the brand in the marketplace. It's actually the very last thing you do. And so the brand, when I say that it's owned by the customers, it's a relationship, it's an experience, it's this 360-degree sort of amorphous thing, which is the essence of what does it feel like to engage with a brand, you know, at every touch point of that. And so when I say that your brand is owned by your customers, that means that there's two parts of the brand, and the brand construct consists of, first, the brand identity, which is the part that you control, and then the brand image, which is the part that customers control. And so there's lots of examples out there of brands where there's a broken brand promise, where the image of the brand doesn't match the identity. And so that's one of the things that you have to be working on from a brand perspective all the time.
Well, and I think the best brands that I think of when I'm the most loyal to a product or loyal to a company, you get a feeling from them. You're sort of emotionally invested in this company, and you're not, I mean, I'm not sure why, you know, you just sort of get that little thing where you think, yes, they're speaking to me, or this applies directly to me, and you stick with that company.
So whenever I talk with people about the brands that they like, I hear words like love. You know, where else in business do you hear the word love? I mean, it truly is, it's a phenomenon where really we're tapping into people's psyche and down into their very, very heart. There's actually brain science behind this, right? So you have, you know, multiple parts of the brain. This part of the brain right here, the neocortex, it manages cognitive thought and language processing and things like that. The brainstem, you know, that's all about sort of fight or flight. And then deep in the gooey center of the brain is the limbic system. And branding is all about stimulating the limbic system and getting people to feel something. And so the brand experience is something that really creates an emotional response. I mean, I have brands that I love. You probably have brands that you love. There really is no other aspect of business where you get to use those kind of emotions and those kinds of feelings. It can be very, very powerful. And if you have a really strong brand, it can actually be a financial asset for your organization and for you personally and for the products that you're selling.
Oh, absolutely, because there are so many competitors out there. No matter what industry you're in, there's a lot of similar products that are available, and a lot of times the differentiation between the two is how the consumer feels when they purchase it, when they use it, when they experience it. Let's give some free advice, because Utah is just a sea of young entrepreneurs and new businesses coming to town. What are some of the key mistakes that people make in branding?
So I think some of the key mistakes is to just start with the visual identity first.
Okay.
Right, that's one of the big mistakes that I see people making, is that they go straight to, what does our creative look like? What color do we need to be? What words do we need in order to show up in the marketplace? And they don't deal with the foundational issues. So that's one thing. Another thing that I think is a big mistake is when organizations, companies, products try to differentiate just on the basis of features and options. I'll give the example of automotive. So I've been around long enough to have purchased a car that didn't have power door locks and power windows as standard.
When you could still go like this.
Yes, exactly. So there's a functional benefit to not having to go like this, but it's not really a differentiator. As soon as the car manufacturers started making power door locks and power windows standard equipment, it became standard equipment and not a big differentiator. And so if you have a product or you have a service and you're going out there and you're marketing on the idea that you just do something better or do something different, and it's not really meaningful in a way that it cannot be imitated, you're not going to have a sustainable legacy to get out in front of everybody else. So I always tell people, you know, like the big sort of soapbox that I get on is today's options packages are tomorrow's standard equipment. So the third thing then I would say is you have to create a brand that connects with people emotionally and tells a story about the user in a very powerful and emotional way, and that's something that's differentiating. So that's how
I love that. What makes today special is going to be standard tomorrow.
Exactly, exactly.
That.
But there are sort of core attributes that are going to be enduring. They're going to create a long-lasting legacy. They're always going to tell a story about the person who's using them. So going back to the car example, if you take a Subaru and let's take a Subaru SUV, and then you take, I rented a Dodge SUV, and you put those things next to each other. When you peel everything back, they have the same functional benefits. They do the same thing. They get you from point A to point B. They're both SUVs, so they have all-wheel drive, so you can go off-road. You know, they have cargo space. They have transmission. They have chassis. They have steering wheel and all that.
All those things you expect.
Yeah, power door locks, power windows. Power steering. Anti-lock brakes, et cetera, et cetera. However, you know that a Dodge is a Dodge and it's not a Subaru. Subaru tells a completely different story about the driver than the Dodge does, doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
And so that's...
The Subaru driver is sharing the love. I don't know what the Dodge driver
Yeah, Subaru absolutely branded love.
They branded love.
They branded love. And so, that is the story, and that story is not about the brand. That story is about the person who's driving the car.
About the person who's driving it. It's so true. Well, I want to show people your book, because you want to talk about a good brand. The book is called Branding is Sex. Get your customers laid and sell the hell out of anything. And I think that is just, talk about branding yourself, right? That's going to jump yourself off the shelf. Finally, Deb, I want to ask, you've been in the business for so long, you've seen so many companies succeed and seen them fail. What are some classic branding companies that you think they did it right?
I go straight to the Apple example. I think Apple has really done it right in terms of being very clear on who their ideal customer is and kind of transcending products and transcending functionality.
They became a lifestyle.
They became a lifestyle, absolutely. I always look at the branding of the iPod to be kind of, the classic brand story in the industry right now, where instead of, this is a device that lets you play music electronically and store digital files and things like that, they went to 1,000 songs in your pocket.
So
which
smart.
I mean, it's so brilliant.
Gets me every time.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
Because
Another one that I admire right now that I absolutely love is Nest programmable thermostat. They took a previously unloved piece of household technology and made it something that people have an absolute love affair with. I have 2 of them in my house, and my house back in Austin. I was hosting some people for South by Southwest last week. A couple strangers walked into my house. Immediately, they went straight to the Nest thermostat, and there was a conversation taking place. Nobody talks about thermostats. Nobody talks about, I love my son being thermostat. No, not sexy at all.
Yes.
And so that's what's really, really fun about that particular brand. So those are a couple.
Those are some good ones.
Those are a couple of good ones.
All right, Deb, thank you so much for being here. This is fascinating, and good luck and enjoy South by Southwest. I bet that was fun too.
That was super fun, but I'm here to do some skiing this week.
Well, you picked a good week. Deb Gabor with Soul Marketing. If you want to learn more about branding and how you can support your business to become successful in the future, go on Amazon. The book is called Branding is Sex. We're going to take a break and be right back with more on Park City Television right after this.